welcome back. Bool Boys Pod, episode 6. Coming back at you guys. How are you? Brian, Sebastian in the house. How are you?
Doing very well, man. It's been hot as hell, but overall, great like always.
Yeah, just quite tired. Say that our sporting events from the last night were timed very poorly and have resulted in me being quite tired.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's been really hot. We're in the heat of summer now. Brian, you're 1 week out from your officiating of the wedding, right?
Yeah, it's the last week of being the wedding guy, and I'm pretty looking forward to it. But as mentioned, we were talking a little bit before the pod. It's kind of like the final hours, so there's a lot of random talking to the wedding planner about this random thing, and then like random brunches and random like we had a lunch yesterday, like 1 week out lunch, and then we're gonna have like rehearsal dinners, and it's obviously this one because it's my sister is the most important one, so I'm excited, but also it's like I'm also excited for my stretch to be over and to relinquish the name of the wedding guy.
Yeah, all those
So
previous ones were like the preseason games, and now you're the officiant. It's like they molded you into this moment where it's time for you to step up and have a huge part in the actual wedding.
It's playoff time for Brian, for sure.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
exactly.
I also think, though, in a good way, like I was concerned about how formal I would have to be up there, but having been to a bunch, and the officiant tends to actually be pretty, not like super casual, but just up there having a good time. So I think I feel a little bit less pressure, and just I shortened my speech, so it's only like 7-8 minutes, so that it's not too much of me rambling. But it should be fine. Yeah, I'm excited.
Sebastian, anything new? How was your week? Since we last spoke.
It was decent. Yeah, decent. Just
Why
not
not
much change, I
fantastic?
guess. Yeah,
Why not
Yeah,
fantastic?
why not fantastic?
most weeks are decent, unless something stands out, then they're fantastic. I'd say.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, yeah.
It's
So
also the dead of summer,
Yeah,
like
it's pretty
yeah,
hot. Like,
hot. There's not really much going on sports wise, also. So it's kind of
true,
like, okay.
true.
Except for
Yeah.
Shohei. And Shohei's awesome, dude.
yeah, there's I'd say there's like a lot going on sports wise, but it's like offbeat sports time. So like, yeah, unless you're like into like slam ball and stuff, it's kind of slow.
Hezzy God,
I've
dude.
been Hezzy God's been killing it in Big Three. I will say that. That is one of the stars of summer sports. I'd say, yeah.
Ashwin, do you know Hezzy God?
I don't.
Okay,
Oh,
so
missing out.
I'll give like a quick introduction, or whatever you want to call it. It's like I'm sure there's like this whole YouTube basketball culture, right?
Sure.
And Hezzy God's like a guy who's like a great scorer. It's kind of street ballish. He shows up to a lot of like these open runs and like these street ball games, and he's very flashy. He talks a lot of shit. And he's playing in the Big Three. And when Sebastian told me he was playing the Big Three, I was like, to be honest, I'm not like a huge fan of him. Like between the big street ballers, it's probably like him and like Frank Nitti are like
Okay.
as like the best guys. And do you know Frank Nitti?
It sounds very familiar.
Sure. He's
Franklin
just like another one of
Sessions.
his.
He's also in the Big Three.
Yeah. But I like Frank Nitti a lot. I think he just seems to be a better player. But apparently, Hezzy God is also in it, and he's just like dominating.
He's way
the Big
better,
Three.
actually.
He's like,
Oh, wow.
like the scoring records and stuff. So
Nitty's very good, but Hezzy God's just been like going off in the Big Three, and his team's like winning a lot.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And
I haven't really
just,
been
like,
paying attention too much, but
Yeah, I pretty much only watch his games because, like, I don't know. I put it on as background noise a lot of times.
yeah. He's pretty short too, so there's a lot of like.
Define
yeah.
pretty short, like 6'2"
I-
short,
under-
or like
I
5'8".
think he's
I think
under
like-
6 feet.
I think he's like 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah,
Oh wow, good for him.
Yeah. And he's like kind of like a bulky 5'11" guy. Think of like
Yeah.
a 5'11" Ty Lawson or something like that.
Okay.
yeah, kind of. That's a good comp.
kind of. Not maybe
Wow,
not in
okay.
terms of the play exactly, but he just has like sick handles and
He's probably
kind of
not as
a build.
fast as Ty, but
probably not even close. But,
but
he's a good
just, like,
player.
it's pretty hilarious watching him in Big Three because he's just like dominant. And I think what I like about Hezzy God is that a lot of times it doesn't look super like complex what he's doing, and it's still just super effective.
So, Brian, are you saying something? I think you might be on mute.
You muted
Okay.
yourself.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'll be on the lookout for them. When does this is big three? Are we in the end? Like, what stage are we at right now?
Big three, I believe what's happening is they've made their first cut down from like 12 teams to 8. And then next week is like the final week before the playoffs, and they'll cut down from 8 to 4. And I'm
Are there any
fairly
pros?
certain.
Old
Yeah,
pros?
yeah, tons of old pros are in it.
Like who's killing it? Like who are like killing it?
I'm not super sure on that. Like
They're not Hezzy God. Doesn't matter.
I would say like Royce White has always been very good, but he's kind of
Yeah.
fallen
Good for
off the
him.
last few weeks. No,
He found
not
he
good for
found
him.
a home.
Not really, dude.
Well,
Not a very likable individual.
Wasn't that the guy
He's
with the
become-
mental health issues and they kicked him out
Yeah,
of the league,
but
basically?
I think as time has gone on, that has aged better for the Rockets than it has for him, because
So
he
he's
just
just a
seems to be a
bust.
pretty atrocious person.
Okay.
Yeah, he just seems to be a pretty bad guy.
Are
You
you
don't
saying
need
there
to
was
get
some
into it
assault or
too deep.
something? Okay, that's I assume. Okay.
No,
Uh,
it's griftery. He's just very griftery.
like our friend Jonathan
in the
Isaac.
political avenue. Jonathan Isaac has some sick shoes coming out, though. Did you see those?
I didn't see
I
them,
didn't
but
see
I heard
them.
about them. Yes.
Are they? What's going
They
on
look
with them?
super sick, dude. Sure, everybody's gonna be
uh,
balling in them soon.
It's for people who don't want to defend their Christian values or something along those lines. For people,
Oh, wow.
our
Okay.
values
Yeah.
matter, right? Yeah, that's the motto or
And,
something.
We're
along
not
those
gonna
lines.
sell our soul.
I looked it up, and the first thing that comes up is an anti-woke, faith-based
Yeah.
alternative to Nike.
There you go.
That's kind of crazy.
Be sure to invest now in the ground level. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that stock's gonna be flying
All
soon.
right. Didn't he just sign another contract? Am I tripping? Recently-ish? No, maybe I'm tripping.
This kind of seems like the move you do, like the Enos Cantor, like you're on your way out, so you gotta like find a home real quickly, whether it be in the political sphere, so be it.
Yeah,
I'd be
I'm
surprised if
tripping.
he gets another contract.
It was a little while back. Yeah.
Jonathan
Doesn't
Isaac?
fade. Yeah.
I feel like he's still. I don't know. It's a very strange career. Injuries really derailed it. I'm not sure that it's
Super
like
derailed.
For
I mean,
sure.
when he played,
completely done for him,
good.
though.
He
Yeah,
was good when he played.
It was way better than Ennis ever was.
Oh yeah, for sure. Or more potential, let's say.
Yeah, maybe that's
had
another
some
way to put it.
good stretches. Yeah, freedom,
So,
Mr. Freedom.
yesterday, to change topics a little bit, I was going to see my cousin and uncle and aunt in Manhattan Beach. They live there.
Nice.
So around 9 or 10, get ready, go downstairs, and I'm traveling with my dad. And he looks at me, he's like, I think you're going to want to wear some sneakers. Why do I need to wear sneakers? And he's like, oh, we're actually going to play pickleball there. So like I didn't even know. I thought it was like a lunch or something, and I was just like dressed with a collar or something. He makes me change, and we go play pickleball in Manhattan Beach with like there's tons of people around us playing and stuff. Very hype. But yeah, second time in the last 2 weeks, and this one was a surprise. Very fun. I'm getting hooked.
Oh.
It's quite fun.
So positive experience.
Oh yeah, and like even my dad, who's not like really athletic, was able to like play and have fun. So like good for him. Like he was gassed as hell, but he was able to participate in a way he couldn't participate in like if we played tennis or basketball or something like that. So or soccer even. So and then my cousin who just came off an ACL surgery was like, she's like very short, like 4'11" or something, and so I don't know why, but she was by far the best player. She also hasn't played at all, but she was just so low to the ground. She was getting great torque and great like volleys and stuff. I don't know what was going on, but like she's picking up balls, like digging like in volleyball you digging balls up. She was very good. So yeah, a lot of fun. But surprising
I'm
that
just
it's
looking at
penetrated.
Sebastian and the expression of discontent.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah.
I recently, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the astroturfing attempt, but I've been getting random Instagram like recommended for use for pickleball. I'm just like, I don't express anything about pickleball and like anything. I don't search it up. I don't talk about it with anybody. So I think that's the astroturfing effort. I gotta say, I'm still not on board. I think the one I just saw recently was some sort of league, and a guy, he hits the ball at a girl and he gets like hype, like yeah, because she like misses
Yeah, I
it,
saw that. I saw that.
Yeah,
He
she
hits her in
like
the
misses
face,
it, and
right?
then yeah, he hits her. It's like he barely hits her in the face, but then people are like, "Is he going too far?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, dude!" It's just like the ball is going super slow, and like it's not a big deal. But I mean, yeah, I'm not there yet, but and even this morning, Nam asked me if I wanted to play, but
He
I
did.
said,
I
"Hey,
missed it. I would have gone actually, I think, but it's
I got
6:50 in the
got a
morning. It's a little bit too early for me.
got a
Yeah.
hard pass on that one."
Yeah.
So no worries, I'm
Yeah.
with you, Sheebs.
It's not fun to watch, but try playing it. I know you played it once, right, Sebastian? Try playing it once. You might enjoy it. Oh, that's all I'll say. Uh, let's move on.
Yeah,
Lot
let's
of
do that.
sports were. Let's a lot of sports were. A lot of sporting events happened this week, so we'll talk about a couple of them. I think the most pressing thing that we need to talk about is the U.S. Women national team going out this morning, early in the morning, to Sweden. Uh, there's a lot to say about the U.S. women's national team because they were strong favorites, and to go out in the round of 16, it's not a great look. I'll first give the floor to Sebastian, let him talk about it, and then I want to say something about like overall their fight for equal pay, and in particular two players I want to highlight. But Sebastian, you can go first.
I think what was apparent from pretty much maybe not the first game against Vietnam, although that was still kind of a concerning performance considering the competition. No offense,
Mm-hmm.
Brian. Um, like
How dare you?
I would I would say that in the gap between them and the competition significantly lessened, and it kind of felt like the rest of the world caught up technically, and the U.S. women stagnated and seemed like they were still very reliant on their size and athleticism compared to the rest of the world, whereas other teams had much better touch, much better tactics, and just played more cohesive. The I don't really get what the manager was doing with Alex Morgan as like the
I
lone
agree.
striker at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I hate to say because she seems like a very nice woman and is a legend, but I genuinely feel like she may have been the worst player in the entire tournament on like contending teams. It was very hard
Well
to
said.
watch her continuously flap at balls in front of the goal. I really never felt like she even got close to scoring. Her touch was really poor. She was very languid and not very fluid in her movement. I don't get what he was doing with that.
Mm-hmm.
I just, I also feel like they really were stuck between generations, like trying to fit in the old guard while kind of not playing new players as much as they should have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I just you never. I'd say after the second match against was it the Netherlands, you never got the feeling that they were actually the favorite anymore. That feeling faded pretty quickly when you watch the rest of the tournament. And yeah, just they weren't an enjoyable team to watch. And all these reports of like strife between players, it's very concerning. You don't really hear that usually from the U.S. women's national team. It just kind of didn't seem like they gelled. So I don't know. Kind of feels like their run was pretty incredible regardless. So things like this do have to end eventually. But they will have to make significant changes before the next World Cup in order to return to their top dog status, I'd say.
What sort of strife was being reported?
Well, I don't know how much you can really like take it accurately, but like apparently numerous former players were saying like Rapinoe is very forceful with like telling players not to sing the national anthem and stuff like this.
I see.
And
Oh,
Oh
so
like
it's like
wow.
not even
yeah,
game related.
like
It's like,
Hope Solo said
oh,
that,
that's bad.
who we all know kind of has been ostracized for good reason. She was not the greatest person. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to say somebody else said it. I don't think it was Carly Lloyd, but it was another pretty significant player who came out and said like Rapinoe is very, very forceful with what she demands like behind the scenes. And honestly, Megan Rapinoe, the way she played, doesn't have the right to do that. She was
She was
arguably even
terrible.
worse than
She was
Alex
terrible.
Morgan. And I didn't really get why. Is his name? What's the manager's name? I don't want to keep calling him the manager. Is it Well, what? Well, I looked that up. Yeah, just I
Yeah.
felt he kept forcing her in there, hoping she would like spark some brilliance, and it just didn't really ever feel like she was actually doing that. It felt like her touch was poor as well, and she maybe had like one or two nice passes in the games I watched, but yeah, I wasn't very impressed with her play considering the attitude she brought. Also,
So just to chime in, it seems like his name is Vlatko
Vlatko, yeah, Vlatko Andonovsky, yeah,
Andonovsky. So I will echo your sentiments about Alex Morgan. I watched Sweden and I watched some of the highlights of the other games, and she doesn't. There's like a revolution in soccer that I think has happened in the last 20 years. Is that you realize that these strikers who just sit around doing nothing at the top of your formation and they don't press, they don't win balls back, and they're not super clinical, just don't have a place anymore. And I think maybe it's
exactly,
because if she's old, if she would for whatever reason, or she's lost a step, Alex Morgan didn't do any of those things, and she didn't score. So like, why are you playing her? A big thing, and there's a lot of young players. I think a big one that people talk about is Alyssa Thompson. Is no, like you need to play her. Like she'll run and stuff. Like I don't know. There Alex Morgan really disappointed me. She's the face of soccer, well, U.S. women's soccer for the last 10 years, maybe 10 plus years. And for me personally, I did a little research on her actual club career, and I think when what happened was when she was in Lyon, I think she won the Champions League. They won the Champions League, and she got hurt in the Champions League final. She elected not to come back. They had a contract. She elected to come back to America after that, and she hasn't been back really since, except for Tottenham Hotspur for 1 year, and she didn't play well in there at all. If you look at her, I think I have her uh, scoring record up. She scored
I was hearing
12.
a lot of people saying she was
Mm,
she was miscast in that role. A lot of people were saying.
you
I'm
think she's
not
a
super
second
familiar with
striker?
what her. That's what people were kind of saying. I'm not super familiar with her club form, so I can't really speak to that. But it did seem like she was out of place just watching her. And I watched every game except the Vietnam game, and I would say they were all pretty disappointing.
She Alex
Shaking
has
my
only
head
scored
too.
20 double-digit goals twice in 2 years. She's got to 12, and one of them was in the Women's Soccer League for the NWSL with the San Diego Wave 2 years ago. So she's not prolific striker. So that was the wrong. Maybe it's true. It was the wrong role for her. So Brian, any thoughts before I
Yeah, I
just want
just
to
had a question.
sure.
Yeah, I just had a question, I guess, in terms of, I guess, given the way that they lost, just like PKs, like at the very, very end, would had they, let's just say snaked it out and were able to win, and let's just say continue to win to the end, like would the disappointment still be the same amongst people in terms of like the reception of it, in terms of like, oh yeah, like Alex Morgan's playing horribly, but she
I think
snaked it out
results trump
anyway,
all.
or is it like, yeah, like would
I
those
think
results have kind of made everything better essentially?
I feel that they probably would have had to have got to a semifinal regardless, and I think they would have played Japan next. I'm not sure if am I
Oh,
correct. I might be wrong in that. Japan has been the best team in the tournament
they're
so
gonna get
far,
spanked. Yeah,
and
yeah.
would have been a nightmare matchup for the U.S. because they're so fast and so precise. And so I do feel they would have probably lost in the quarterfinals anyway. And I do think it still would have been bad and people would have been disappointed because even today or this morning in that match, the US outshot Sweden 21-7 and had much more possession. And honestly, they were a better team. They played their best match of the tournament so far, and their finishing was just absolutely atrocious
That's
in
a
front of
big thing.
goal. Yeah. So,
Finishing is not
like,
good.
no, you can't have bad. Like you can be as dominant as you want with the ball, run circles around your opponent, but if you can't actually put the ball into the goal, it's kind of hard to win matches, you know. And then relying on PKs and the way that penalty shootout unfolded, I mean, that was ugly. But just relying on PKs, it's always a crapshoot. And yeah, like Ashwin said, results trump all. But I think people still would have been murmuring about like that was really disappointing still. And then they would have lost probably next round, and it would have been back to the same cycle basically.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'll just say this: we can all agree it was a bad performance. A little bit shameful that we went out this early and that the on-field product was not good at all. It's one thing to just have bad results and like get unlucky, but we know that they weren't going to do well and that this is kind of where they expected to be. Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
What are you asking? Like,
yeah, so like that it wasn't just bad luck. Like you can play really well and still lose in a soccer match. This was them playing poorly and they got knocked out.
yeah,
And they
I
should
would
have
agree with that. Yeah.
and they should have been in the top 4 at the very least, if not better. Correct? Like in an
Well,
ideal
yeah,
world.
they shouldn't have been in a position where they had to play Sweden in the round of 16. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely was a disappointment in that regard. They shouldn't have finished second in the group.
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked the question that I did in terms of like it's not just whether you lose, it's like how you lose and like the
Yeah.
overall narrative going into each
Yeah.
game and
Correct.
expectations. Right. And so, yeah, that's kind of just what I was alluding to.
So that I did a deep dive into like I know there's been a lot of talk about U.S. women teams fight for equal pay over the last like 3 to 5 years, and so that's why I thought it was pertinent to talk about like this because of the way they lost. If they lost in a much better way, then it would have been fine. I don't think we would have had this conversation. But in the nature of the way they lost, I did some research and this is what I found. So just bear with me, okay? So U.S. women's national team has sued for equal pay in 91, 99, 15, and 19. Okay?
Sued, you said?
Sued, correct.
Okay,
Sued
sure.
for equal pay in these 4 times. And basically there are 2 governing bodies that dictate what these players get paid. There's the U.S. Soccer Federation, which is kind of like your base pay. I think this is the best way to put it. They give you a base pay. And then there's FIFA, who designates a bonus pay dependent on what tournament you're in. So if you're in the World Cup and you get to a certain place, your federation might get $5 million. If you get to the same place in the men's competition, you might get $50 million. There's some factor there, okay? So you get your base, as a women's soccer player, you get your base pay from the soccer fed, and then however well your team does, you get some sort of payout from FIFA. And so U.S. Soccer Fed has always been willing to pay men and women the same amount. What the problem here is that FIFA is not willing to pay women and men's World Cup teams the same amount. And so the resolution after this last fight was that our soccer fed decided to put both the men's and the women's bonus pool in the same kind of account and pay people equally from there. So I'll give a concrete example is last World Cup men's, I believe, got to the round of 16, right? And so they got
same as the women's, yeah.
So they got $13 million for accomplishing that. And the women for their performance this year, they get $2 million. That's how much FIFA was willing to pay to the bonuses. So normally in the past, $2 million would be divided amongst all the players on the women's team, and they would get a bonus. Now they're combining the $2 million and $13 million together and paying the men and women equally from there. Okay, is that kind of clear? So now
That's
you're getting
clear.
a $15 million bonus pool, and it's going to both, even though in theory the men got 13 of it and the women got second of it, 2 million of it. So, and as you guys know, the leading proponent of that charge was Megan Rapinoe, right? So that's why I think in particular her response after they lost was so sickening. And now I'm hearing what Sebastian's telling us about like how she like rules the locker room with an iron fist. I really don't think she should have been involved at all. She's 38 years old.
Mm-mm.
She wasn't playing well. And this is what she said, like her missing the penalty was a sick joke. it's some sort of dark humor, me missing the penalty at the end of this game, and then she's like laughing about it and stuff. And I just don't think that's a good look. Like, you fought so hard for equal pay, and then to like take it so lightly after the fact, and when you were one of the reasons why you lost, she took zero accountability for missing the penalty, and was just like, you know, what happens, and this happened at the end of my career. It really sucks and stuff like that. And apparently, she was laughing the entire time and like smiling and like ruefully smiling. Not a good look. I didn't think it was a good look. And also, to that point, Alex Morgan, like we talked about a little bit, these are the two people who were instrumental in creating this equal pay structure, and then to like kind of lay an egg like this right after you fought so hard for it, it's not a really good look. So I just wanted to make sure, like, there's been a lot of there's been a lack of clarity in how this equal pay thing goes. Like, they're getting the same amount of pay from the U.S. employers. It's just the bonus structure. They got what they wanted, and then to put this performance is not a good look. That's all I'll say. So,
Is
any
the
comments?
bonus
Yeah.
is the bonus such a big gap because of TV money?
It has to be
I was going
tied
to
to
ask something
revenue.
similar. Yeah, I was going to ask
So
something similar, like where the money comes
actually
from.
do kind of understand why the U.S. Soccer Federation would do that, even though I think I can see both sides of it. Um, I Her laughing to me was a strange look, but I kind of got it. Like, I don't know, she's won so many before. I feel like she wanted to still keep the mood light because there were people after her. Um, and it would be kind of a bad look if you're the leader and you just come back and you immediately start bawling after missing the fourth penalty. But
Not
it
enough to be
doesn't look
balling, but take
good.
some accountability. Right? I go on. Yeah.
It doesn't look good in like retrospect when you look at the highlights. She did seem to be quite upset after when they actually did lose, though. But
Mm-hmm.
she still was like smiling. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not like gonna be the police
It's
of
the
how
Kevin.
people react.
I was
The
gonna say
what?
something. It was the Kevin Fu paradox from your. Remember you wrote. I think it was on our AllNet team. So he would always smile after making a mistake, and then our coach would just say, "Stop fucking smiling." You know, like it was
It could just
actually
be a reaction of like nervousness, or you know, like it's a pretty natural reaction, right? To you
Yeah.
kind of know you messed up, and you're like laughing
it.
because
It does
you're.
rub some people the
I
wrong
don't know
way.
if you're intentionally trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I don't know if you're
No, I would
intentionally
say
trying to
that's like
deflect,
kind
but
of how I react a lot of times if I badly fuck up. I pretty much laugh because like it's like, oh man, that was a really bad fuck up. But it's more, I don't know. It's not really like culturally ingrained into Americans to do that. It's you could see
sure.
it. I don't know. Like Australian football players are very much like this. I feel like when they lose
Mm.
or something, they're just like very jolly guys who laugh and stuff. But I don't know. Like I do get what you're saying. I would say there's more poignant criticisms of her than how she reacted after missing that penalty. Just like you should know or have some self awareness at your age that you don't have it. But I mean, I guess all great athletes, that tends to be their problem, right? They
It's
never
fair.
know when to hang it
Yeah.
up. But yeah, I feel it's not a great look, like you said, like considering she led the charge to not take any accountability. And I do think that has been kind of clear. Um, she was like, I think people were really pissed off at her after the Portugal game when the U.S. barely like scraped by to make it into the round of 16. Like they were shown dancing and like signing autographs and stuff. And Carly Lloyd on the Fox broadcast, like post match, did you hear what she said?
No.
She said,
I haven't heard that name in a long time. Yeah.
these are scenes you don't want to see. The MVP of that match was nobody on the U.S. team. It was the post. Because I don't know if you saw
Oh damn.
Portugal hit the post in like the 93rd minute, and if they had actually
Yes.
scored that goal, the
Yes.
U.S. would have been
It would have been
eliminated.
done.
So
Yeah.
she said that, and to me, that's like wow. Like if one of your all-time great players is saying that about the team, that's like she's furious because that she could like that's her censoring herself for TV.
I also feel like in the moment though, like there may be some bad optics to her kind of not owning up, especially having led that fight with the split. But she's probably not even thinking about it. You
No,
know what I
I would
mean? Like
agree.
she's
to
probably
your
just
point,
going up
Brian.
there and like,
Yeah.
yeah, that sucked. You know what I mean?
Well, because she got
So
her
I don't know how
payday.
much I'd blame her. I guess.
She got she stayed on the team long enough to get to see like the merits of her hard work and get that significantly higher bonus check, but she wasn't deserving of it at all. That's the key problem I have with it. Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
We've talked about this a lot. Anything else on U.S. women's team, Sebastian? I know you're following it pretty closely.
No, I mean, I don't. They're not my team. Like, I don't really have a set team in the Women's World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So I just watch to see good play, and I would say they did not like bring good play to my television screen when I was watching them.
So
I wasn't.
before we
Well
I
put.
wasn't
before we sign
pleased.
Well put. Well
before we
put.
sign off before we sign off on the women's soccer, is Japan the favorite to just win it all?
I don't know if they're the favorite. I haven't looked at odds, but I would say
Uh,
from what I've seen, them and like Spain
Netherlands
are
and
playing the
Spain,
best.
right?
But then Japan murdered Spain in the last group stage game, and
Wasn't it
I don't
4-0
really
or
know if
something? Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if Spain was resting people or something, but it was pretty dominant. So in Netherlands too, yeah, like Ashwin said. But there's a good match. There's a good match tonight. I believe the first or two good matches. The first one's Nigeria and England. England have been kind of disappointing, and they were kind of a strong
Mm-hmm.
contender heading into the tournament. And then Australia are the hosts, and they're playing Denmark, and I think they should win that. But that's pretty entertaining, or has potential to be entertaining. But I've really liked the Nigeria team. I don't think they're a favorite, but they've been fun to watch, and so I'll be rooting for them tonight against the English, which is always very easy for me to do as a Scotsman.
I would just say, last thing on women's soccer is there's a player on the Netherlands who plays left winger or something. She had two of the most beautiful goals I've ever seen. She plays for Barcelona. Let me see her name really quickly. Brookstis? I don't. I'll say that. But when I saw her goals, I was legitimately wowed by her technique, and she really knows how to put it in the back of the net. So I'm going to be watching her very closely as the tournament goes on. Let's move on to Arsenal. Arsenal played this morning in the Community Shield versus Man City, which is, you could say, the kickoff party for the new Premier League starting next week, Sunday, or next week, Friday, or Friday
Yeah,
or
it's a
Saturday.
strange. Like I was trying to think of a competition in American sports to like kind of explain the significance to Brian, and I don't think there is one. It's actually like it's a very European thing because a lot of countries have like their Super Cup, and that's what the Community Shield is for England. But
Would you argue that Hawaiian tournament that the basketball teams go to before the
college
start of the season?
basketball,
Yes.
that's not a bad comp. Yeah, it's not a bad comparison. But those are like a little more competitive almost, I feel like, because they're like actual regular season games.
Yeah, it's fair.
But it isn't a bad comparison. And like preseason here is not comparable.
No, it's not. It's like
If you look up Community Shield on Google, fireworks appear.
Yeah, it was today.
We brought
Sorry,
it
just
home.
nice
We
little,
brought it
nice,
home. Yeah.
nice little tidbit. Nice little tidbit, dude.
So as you know, as you may or may not know, Brian, Man City has been the team that's been like dominating English soccer for the last 7 to 10 years, like 8 to 10 years, and last year was particularly painful for us, is because we were leading for like 85% of the season, and in the last month and a half, we kind of shut the bed, as we have done historically. But Man City come and took it, and not only that, they won the Champions League, which is the one thing they've never been able to win so far. So it was the first time they won the Champions League. So
And the FA
if
Cup.
and the FA Cup. So in
Yeah,
soccer,
they
you
won the
evaluate.
treble.
Yeah, like Sebastian says, you evaluate how historically well your team has done by how many major trophies you won. So you have the single, the double, and the treble, and the quad. So like they did the treble of the three most important tournaments that an English team can win. So it's like the highest level of team success they could have had last year. They did, and in the process, they beat us to our first single in like the last 20 years of significance. So it was Brad. So we had a rematch to start off the season. It's like as Sebastian said, a glorified preseason cup, but I would say we play about 80 to 90% of what you would in the regular season. Like our starting 11 was probably about 9 or 10 out of the 11 people who would normally start. It was a tense game, and in general, like the same problems we have when we play City always come up, is that they are able to press really well, and they are able to break our press very easily. That's whenever I see we play City, that's what happens, and it's kind of frustrating. But somehow, some way, they scored a goal in like the 70th minute, and in the 100th minute, nearly 100th minute, one of our players took a shot at the goal. It hit one of the defenders, and it deflected in. Then
Yeah,
in the
shout
penalty
out
shootout,
Akanji for the
yeah, yeah,
assist.
yes. So it was
My
really
guy
hype,
Leo.
really hype watching that, and basically after that we went to penalties and we killed them in penalties and we won. So we won. Arsenal are your Community Shield winners. Hopefully the start of a good season. We played really well. We played okay. Let me take that back. We
Yeah,
played
I would
okay.
say we played okay. I'd say
We
both
played
teams played mediocre.
okay, but some particular players really caught my eye. And the first one I'll say to that is Timber.
Yeah,
Is
that would be my number one too.
Timber is a fantastic. He plays defender on the sides, Brian. They call them wingbacks, and you could historically say that Arsenal has had really good fullbacks, but not like world class fullbacks for a long time. And he's the first world class fullback I've seen in a long time. He can do both styles of play, inverted, and he can overlap, and he's just really solid defensively. So he presents a unique problem for us because we already had 3 or 4 like good fullbacks. Now you add another one who somebody's going to be left out there. Um, so I'll let Sebastian kind of give his thoughts. Brian, if you have any thoughts, you saw some highlights or something, and then I'll circle back and ask some pointed questions about what conclusions I made from the game. So Sebastian first.
I still feel like the new players besides Timber, like Havertz, mainly Havertz, didn't
Mm-hmm.
seem to fully mesh into the system yet. But I think your point about City's press affecting us also is pretty poignant. Like I didn't feel like there was much fluidity in how we were playing, and I was kind of putting that down to the changes in the lineup, but it could also have been the press, like you said. And yeah, I didn't feel like we were super well connected yet. Um, I wasn't overly concerned, even if we had lost, because yeah, it's the Community Shield. I don't put a lot of like emphasis on it, and I was already like prepping myself to be like, because I looked at the past like few years of results in the Community Shield, and I was like, yeah, nobody who actually wins this goes on to win the league. Like I was already like giving myself excuses in my head,
Yeah.
and so I was like already like I was going pretty negative with it already in my head. Like City's never won this, and they've won the league 3 times in a row, and I was like, yeah. So that was where I was going with it before we got the miraculous goal in the last kick of the game, basically. Or I
Yeah.
guess there was actually a few more minutes. I thought the funniest thing from the game was Pep freaking out over the new stoppage time. It's like, hey, bro, like the commentators were calling him out for it. They were like, you've had a meeting about these rule changes with all the other managers before the season. You like
Mm-hmm.
everybody's aware of it, and you're out here like freaking out over this. And then I guess in his post game or post match interview, he also complained about it. And it's just like, dude, like, did you not watch the World Cup? Like, this is how it's been in world football for a good portion of like the last 2 years. Get the fuck over yourself. And I just was like laughing pretty hard at his like tantrum he was throwing. I
He
would have
wasn't
liked to have seen it.
complaining. He wasn't complaining when Rodri didn't get a yellow the entire game.
Yeah, and
Like, yeah, come
he
on, man.
deserved that. Yeah, he could have got 2 yellows, and yeah, um, I just was I thought his chicanery was on 10 already, even though it was a preseason match.
He's ready for the season, is what you're saying.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen his reaction when we scored. Like, I'm pretty sure he probably like punched a hole in his clip. I don't even know what he would have punched a hole in. Thrown his water ball aggressively down on the ground. There,
Yeah.
we'll go with that.
Anything, Brian?
But yeah,
Not too much, I guess. Again, coming from the more, learning,
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
learning viewer, and I no, and I do definitely enjoy like getting that deeper insight from you guys, and as I'm kind of on this journey to learn more. But I guess just like this is kind of a more general soccer sentiment, and that this is also with the women's game earlier we were talking about also. But like I still can't feel very invested when the game ends on PKs. It just feels so like crapshoot. Is that just me, or like I don't know? Like as somebody who isn't really that deep into soccer, like how would you guys explain that? Doesn't it feel kind of? I mean, it's not random. Obviously, like there are good players, there's some bad players, but it almost feels like of course, it's not a 1-to-1, but I don't know, like a basketball game is decided on like a 3-point contest or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, is there not any other solution that can be? I don't know, play 30 more minutes, and I know. I mean, I know they play extra and all that. You get what I'm saying, but I just
used
don't
to
know.
feel that way, but I've realized that if they did that, people are already pretty much dead by the end of the 120
Yeah,
minutes.
true.
That's fair.
And if they played 150 minutes, the quality of play would be disgustingly bad.
But it
Like
would be
I came to
kind
that
of hype though,
realization.
right? It's like the 12th round of a boxing match. These guys are slogging for
It
the
would be
final
more like the
goal,
18th
dude.
round of a boxing match. Like that's more what it would be like.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I used to feel that way up until like a few years ago. I can't remember what tournament changed my mind. It might have been the last World Cup, honestly. I can't. It was just like these guys are already extremely tired. If they
Yeah,
played
no, I
another
get
30 minutes, it would be disastrous for everybody.
It only feels like a crapshoot when you lose, Brian. When you win, you don't care.
that.
Yeah,
Like, when you win, it's like sucks
this
for
is
you,
very
dude.
true.
Y'all can't hit your PKs, dude. We good, dude.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
That's funny.
That's pretty true, yeah.
So, just a couple of small questions I had left on the Arsenal game. Or now that we have such a big squad, it's gonna be tough to play all of our players, and actually who you choose in each game becomes a big thing as well. Like team selection becomes a good thing. When we had our team last year, we were playing the same 11 every game, and they were our best 11. Now you have options here, so I'm gonna ask you some options, Sebastian, and you tell me what you think. Okay, I'll just be really quickly.
Well, I
Okay.
would just say another reason why we need to have a bigger squad is because we also have Champions League.
Yes.
So
Can't
that's like,
be. Yeah, has
yeah,
to be said.
it's not
Yeah,
like Europa League last year where you kind of play your FA Cup or a weaker squad, you know?
sure. So based on this, I'll just preface it with this. What do you think is our best 11? And I'll give you a couple options. So in the midfield, do you think we go with Partey, or Rice, Odegaard? Or do we go with Rice, Odegaard, Havertz?
I need to see more of Havertz before I can like definitively say that. Right now, I would probably go with option one.
I go with option one. I feel like it's pretty.
Yeah.
They're so much more solid, and what it does is it lets Odegaard go free and not have to worry about defense. Okay.
Yeah.
Timber or Ben White at right back
Timber.
for sure. Okay.
At right back?
Yeah.
That's a good problem to have, but yeah, I don't know. I like Timber.
Okay.
It's hard. I love Ben White.
Yeah, these are tough. These are the tough questions I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's
Exactly.
really tough.
Okay. Here's another tough one: Trossard or Martinelli on the left to start.
Martinelli. I like when
Okay.
Trossard comes off the bench.
Okay, and then
As much as I love Trossard.
Yeah, and the way he's playing for sure, no doubts. And
Yeah.
then last
But
quick one is
Martinelli was like key last year.
he was key last year, and if you noticed in today's game, the only way we were progressing the ball is if it went through Martinelli's side. You know, like he just runs and they
Yes.
gets it, and then we're all to follow him, and then we're all of a sudden in their box. So it works. Last one was
He was like the breakout star of the Premier League last year.
Martinelli. Yeah, I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of him. Backup striker spot. Would you rather play Havertz? Would you rather play Eddie or Balogun? Who do you want for your backup striker?
I don't. Are we play? I mean, I would probably go with Eddie. Feel like my complaint about Eddie was he's not super clinical, but he does eventually find the back of the net. It's just when
Fair
he's
enough.
like your starting striker, it's more illuminated.
When he has to play 90 every game, he gets tired,
Yeah.
and a lot of the little things he does don't happen, or they don't go for him. So I would agree.
Yeah.
We'll finish up this segment and take a break real quick. I'll just say one thing on Man City is no Ederson. KDB came on at 60. No Josko, and they still have yet to replace Gundogan or
No.
Mahrez. So I mean, Kovacic played well, but I still think they have one more signing to make, so we have to be careful about them. A
I've
lot of their
one
key players
comment
are not
about
there. Yeah,
Stefan Ortega.
yeah.
He looks like a slightly, I won't say the first part. He just looks a lot like KOC from The Ringer. And I was kind of laughing at this when he was sitting there about to save penalties. I was like looking at his face and I was like, oh my God, that man looks like Kevin O'Connor. Kevin
Let me look at
O'Candyland.
Kevin O'Connor.
Kevin O City.
Okay.
But yeah, I was
Kevin
laughing
O'Connor,
pretty
there you go.
hard. I was just like, oh my God, that man looks a lot like Kevin O'Connor.
Very good. Anything else on soccer we need to talk about? He does kind of. He kind of does, but yeah, I see it now. It's kind of hard to miss.
All right. And with that, I guess we'll
I think
take a
that wraps
break.
up our first segment regarding the Community Shield and the U.S. Women's National Team. We'll be taking a break and returning to discuss the Jake Paul and Nate Diaz fight.
Stay tuned.
Stay
That's so
tuned.
funny.
Welcome back to Bool Boys Podcast. Had some technical difficulties, took a break, sorted it, and we're back. We talked about a little bit about our soccer, and now we're going to move into a key boxing event that happened yesterday. Nate Diaz and Jake Paul fight. I saw it. I saw it from round 3 onwards. It was entertaining to say the least. But I'll let Brian kind of talk more on it. Brian, anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to say leading up to the fight. There's, some kind of like right, even just a couple days before the fight in the presser, there's the classic like, yeah, dude, you're a bitch, and like both teams going at each other, and I think the general consensus was that, or at least in my mind, was that as it is with most of Jake's fights, Nate Diaz isn't a boxer, but he is, a much better fighting athlete. So while Jake might win boxing, that this would not be like the worst case scenario for Nate. And honestly, for me, that's kind of what it did feel like. I didn't feel like there was any winners in this one. Number one, I think we've seen enough of Jake. Oh, okay. Look, I think we've seen enough of this Jake fighting the old boxer thing. We get it. Like the old fighters, not even boxers thing. It's like we get it. You're not a complete dud in boxing, but you're fighting people who are much older than you. And he did look pretty bad, honestly, throughout the fight. He did look pretty bad. And Nate Diaz in his, is he retired? Is he retired?
No, but
No, pretty close to
the later
retirement,
part of
right?
his career. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
I mean, he's not going to retire. He's going to take other fights.
Sure.
He's a pretty big
But
name. He can make money.
yeah, like I think what we were able to see is that his stamina is amazing. Like he was taking some hits from Jake, but overall it didn't really seem to phase him too much. And
Kept
even then
coming
he was still
back.
joking around throughout the fight. He was kept coming back. He was like talking to the crowd. He was like putting Jake in some some holds and kind of hamming it up to the crowd. And so I mean, technically he did lose the fight, but I think he actually came out looking better for it.
Yeah.
He gets a nice bag. At the end of the day, he gets a nice bag, and that's I honestly I think that's all he really cares about. And like in classic Nate Diaz fashion, even within the fight, he was very nonchalant and just like kind of goofing around. Didn't really seem like he cared. And then yeah, Jake at the end said like, next time we'll do it MMA so it's fair. And it's like, come on, Jake. Like
You're not doing that, buddy.
Yeah, you're not doing that, dude. You're opening up a ridiculous can of worms that you're already kind of losing the momentum of your boxing path. And so just I think it's time for him to ride into the limelight with this little experiment. But it does bring in money, so I do understand. And so I'll open it up to you guys.
I guess, yeah, nobody won. I'd say Nate, kind of, if I was forced to pick a winner of the scenario, I'd say Nate came out much better than Jake.
He
I think
was
it was,
taking some pretty good hits though.
but no, sort of. But Nate's face is
Early.
always very quickly got busted up. Like it doesn't take a lot of damage for Nate's face to get pretty messed up looking.
Yeah,
He has a
sure,
lot of
sure,
scar
sure.
tissue. I think a lot of the discourse post fight was taking the fight far too seriously. I think it's probably time to stop taking Jake Paul's fights very seriously.
That's a good point.
I agree.
Like he's clearly
He's fine.
stagnated as
Yeah,
a
he's
fighter
fine.
and as like the gimmick. I'd say both of them have stagnated. I don't find him to be a very interesting personality anymore in the fight world. I respect what he's doing, giving like fighters an opportunity with his promotion. Like it's a good platform for up and coming fighters, and I mean like for Amanda Serrano, who's one of the best women boxers ever, it's been a great few fights where she's been partnered
Mhm.
with MVP Promotions. I believe that's what his promotion's called. But he himself, he has to decide if he's going to be the bad guy or the good guy, because I find him to be nauseatingly boring when he goes in and out of like the "I'm gonna fuck him up" or "Boo if you're a virgin, boo if you're a virgin." It's like, bro,
Yeah,
like
I
you're not
hated
12.
that, dude. I
You're
hated
not
that. Yeah, I
12. Like
hated that, man.
you're not a 12-year-old. Like it's not funny. It's very juvenile and very very boring. And then to like start doing the feel good thing afterwards, where it's like, nobody thought me and my brother would do these things, and it's like, well, which one are you, dude? Are you the asshole or are you like the good guy? You have to decide. Nobody wins when you play both ways. Um, and I don't think we need to see him versus the post prime MMA fighters anymore. I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I'd
I
say
that
last night was the end of that experiment because he looked like shit against Nate, who honestly was not taking it very seriously.
right. And it's also if this was actually any sort of momentum, if he really wanted to build his fight career, it was he fought Fury, and if he really wanted to continue down that path, like actually continue to fight boxers, but he actually looked pretty terrible in that. And, Fury's not a great boxer, in my personal opinion, to
No, he's
put it
not.
nicely, not a good boxer. And he like schooled him, So if that was really the path that you wanted to go, then, you would have kind of continued that path and bounced back in another way. And to kind of speak to your point about whether or not he should choose like the good guy or the asshole, I think that's the big crux of why a lot of people dislike him. I honestly, I probably dislike. I don't really care for him. I don't even dislike him. It's just like I don't really care for him much. He's just kind of
I would
this
agree.
internet character to me. So I'm not out here hating on him, but I think that is a reason why people do dislike him. It's because it's like he's always trying to, I guess, curry favor in the best way. Like, I'm the badass, but I'm also like, I have a good heart also. And, and it's just like, he doesn't really have any kind of lane that he stays in, which is actually why nowadays I appreciate Logan more. If anything, I don't mind Logan. I think he's redeemed himself quite a bit. Obviously, he has a terrible past with like the Japan Forest stuff, but
Yes.
hey, he shows that he seems to have showed remorse. And honestly, if you listen to his podcast, it's not that bad. He's not really. I mean, he's Logan Paul at the end of the day, so he's going to be kind of like that broy douchey guy. But it does seem like he actually has matured, which I haven't seen in Jake. So he kind of just stays for me. Jake kind of just stays for me, like kind of this throwaway personality that I personally just don't care too much about. But his fights bring in views, and I'm included. So it is what it is.
I'll say this. I 100% agree with Sebastian that like we don't need to see him fight washed up MMA fighters anymore. Like we get it. He can kind of hang sometimes. Sometimes like we can get it. He'll win. He'll win a lot of them because a lot, like you said, a lot of them are not taking it as seriously as him or training as hard as him, and they're just there because of the paycheck.
I wouldn't even
But
say like
go ahead.
I'd say
Go ahead.
Nate probably trained pretty hard for it because Nate had better cardio than Jake.
Like supremely
But
better. It's like crazy.
Nate is a really like that was one of his strengths always
Yeah,
in his
for
fighting
sure, for
career.
sure. Yeah.
But
I know that.
Nate is like a career 155er fighting at
Yeah.
185
Oh yeah.
against
So
the
for him to be totally staying and like not even looking gassed, 30 pounds over his fighting weight,
yeah.
that's like crazy, dude.
it's not a good look for Jake to not stop Nate, honestly. Like, he should have stopped him, but I mean, Nate's never been stopped before in his career. So I don't know. I think there's two ways to look at that. But yeah, I don't think um I think if he's gonna fight washed up, or not, I hate using that word, but past their prime MMA fighters, it probably has to be people who are closer to his weight and size. And he's continuously done this, and it's just kind of embarrassing at this point.
I I felt more, and Brian will laugh at this. I felt like the bigger adrenaline rush watching watching chess boxing, the chess boxing event, or watching Boogie versus Wings. Like which I showed to Sebastian, those two fat guys. Like that
Oh,
when I
Boogie 2988 or whatever.
yes.
Oh,
I'm not
no.
opposed to that.
Yeah, so like when I watched the fight yesterday, it just felt like a chore. Like I had to get through all the rounds until it was done. And for me, with Jake Paul, by far the biggest draw for the normal person is the average Joe, is that they want to see him get beat up. So like he needs to go the tool route, and he needs to fight people like, and where there's a serious like possibility of him losing hard and getting beat up, because I think that's where like a lot of his views comes from, or initially came from. Maybe not so much now, but initially people were just watching those first fights to watch him get beat up, and he passed those tests like very well, and now he needs to elevate himself to the next level, which is actually fighting real people who are a challenge, and then for him specifically, and really buying into the tool role, because I think that's what people expect and like from him. But anything else, Brian, Sebastian?
I'd say that his largest audience is actually probably kids who grew up watching him who are actually rooting for him. And it's people like
They're
our age and
they're paying
older
for
who are
pay-per-views,
watching
you
him.
think?
Their parents are. I know, like, yeah, their parents are paying for them. And it's like a good it's like, I know people who are like legitimate huge boxing fans who are just like happy to have boxing to watch with their kids. So that's like an appeal of it. But I think what you're saying about him getting beat up is like a selling point. He did get beat up by Tommy Fury pretty badly,
Yeah.
and it did feel like that wasn't even that big of a moment. So I do feel like his career is just kind of stagnated. The gimmick's old, and yeah, I don't know where he goes from here for like going forward.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a interesting point, Ashwin, about like finding the chess boxing thing or whatever Boogie 2998 more interesting, because that's like truly amateurish to the point where you don't know what's going to
Yes.
happen, and so it's like
Yes.
complete wild card, right? Like
Correct.
something crazy could just happen, and there's a line between that and then just like bad, like, and just like it's trying to be good, but it's just straight up bad. And I think that's kind of like the territory that Jake has hit. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
okay, he's not completely terrible. We'll give him that. He's a good athlete. He's a big guy. He's a strong guy.
Well said.
But he's
Yeah.
obviously wants to be good. But for things like the chess boxing and like, yeah, seeing two Smash players that like have never boxed in their lives, it's like bull charge each other and throwing haymakers only. Like that's a different kind of entertainment, because it's like it's completely amateurish to the point of like you don't know if someone's gonna go down from a crazy haymaker or or what. So I think that's a good point.
yeah, I would agree with that. That was like the appeal of his early fights with Nate Robinson, and even like
No, with Nate.
the Ben Askren fight. Those two, that was like early what the appeal was. And I'd say like by the time it got to maybe the second Tyron Woodley fight, that kind of went away. Because he's also in there like doing trying to like minimize risk, because he also doesn't want to get hurt
Oh, for
badly, which
sure.
is fair. That's what you should do if you're trying to be a legitimate boxer.
Yeah,
But it does take away some of the appeal, yeah.
yeah. People just wanted to see him get his ass beat. Just like, dude, I for sure kind of was on that train. Just like, damn, he didn't get his
Yeah,
ass
me
beat
too.
today. Kind of, kind of a bust, dude.
Yeah. That's why I tuned in. Yeah. Anything else on the fight? It was, I mean, kudos to Jake, and Nate Diaz definitely has that dog in him. He loves coming back and just getting punched and like constantly. He enjoys it. You can see he relishes it. But yeah, it was. I watched it. Don't have much more to say on that. Sebastian, Brian, anything?
No,
No,
I
not
think
really.
we summed it up, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to a couple more small sports bites. A couple things that happened in the last week or two was AD got his extension, officially got his extension, 3 for it, 186. So he'll go till, I believe he's 35 with us, full 5 years. Any thoughts on that? Start with Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with it. Great signing. The question with AD is and always is just staying healthy. But when he was healthy this year, he was awesome. In the playoffs, especially, I think he showed uh, why when he is healthy, everybody's so high on him. And I think people actually forget, in a lot of the top 10 lists, he kind of always hovers out of the top 10. But when he's playing at his best, he's top five. He pretty much single handedly destroyed the Grizzlies just purely on defense. He'd scored 15 points, but and only have, let's say, a few blocks, but then they couldn't get anything up in the paint, and their offense was completely disrupted. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I'm pretty excited for the season. But the big question mark, of course, is AD being healthy and LeBron being healthy as well, given he is going into year 21, 22, 21. So yeah.
It's a no-brainer for me. Like, it just absolutely had to be done now before. Like, the cap's going to go up. Contracts are going to start being in the $70 million per year range, and to lock it down when it's at a slightly lower number, I don't even know. I feel like there's a lot of people questioning it, and I don't know if they truly understand the cap like situation.
Yeah. I mean, this makes me feel like even more so that more and more the Reeves signing was just a massive steal given the whole
It
cap
was.
situation, just because given how it is, his market probably is 20 to 25 or something like
Yes.
that. And for us to get him at 16 is pretty hype. And so I'm pretty excited. So what we can do with this. And, we get to keep AD. And so it'll be interesting. Ashwin, you're a little difficult to hear, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no
We
worries.
have to evaluate. I will just say two things on this. We have to evaluate contracts in a different frame of like reference. Not like we always talk about 25 mil. Like Kobe's max was a 25 mil, and that's now what a mid-tier player will get. So everything's changed. So like the 60 or 70 million for Jalen does sound bad, but to Sebastian's point, you just have to like kind of get used to it. That's how much NBA players are getting made right now. And the second thing is the fact that AD signed so quickly to not try to like finagle his way into a bigger max, like something like Harden would do, or like Harden is trying to do right now as we speak, or like like he
Eh,
took the
be
contract.
nice to him, because
What
what he did last year was a nice team option, like a nice team friendly
it
move he
was,
made last year.
Harden? Yeah,
Yeah,
for
it
Philly.
was
Yeah,
no,
it was
be
nice.
nice to him.
no,
No
It's
hard
kind
and
of on
sound.
Philly that
it
it's
is
kind
on
of on
Philly.
Philly, right?
Maybe
That it
Harden wasn't
happened,
the
and then
best.
they're
Yeah,
kind of like, actually, we
It's
don't think it
also on
was
him, but
that
it is
yeah,
what
bad
it
today.
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. It's the
But
situation.
many other players would definitely try to maximize their earnings when they're at 30 or 30, approaching 30 or 30 plus. But he rather would save us what 5-10 million per year on the books and sign immediately for us because he wants to stay with us. So that means a lot to me. And even though he gets a lot of flack, we'll always be an 80 supporter. He got us a chip. He chose us. He signed with us, and like he plays through a lot of injuries, so a lot of credit to him. Anything else on AD? Any other extensions you want to talk about? I looked at the list. There wasn't many that were that
I think
interesting.
that was just the big one, honestly.
Okay.
No, yeah, I
Um,
was happy for the young guys and happy we got 80 back. That's about it.
Fair enough. Okay. One small thing too is that, or not, it's rather big thing is that
It's a big
uh,
thing.
Big.
we are all products of the Pac-12 system, right?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So, Stanford, Cal left out to dry. Oregon, Washington joining Big 12,
Big
right?
Ten. Yeah,
Big
Big
10.
Ten.
So
Big Ten.
Big 10. So since Sebastian's probably the most learned on this, I'll ask him two questions about this. What does this mean for one, Stanford and Berkeley, and two, for the other sports in Pac-12?
Well, I don't really care about the other sports, but I do feel everything is driven by
Basketball.
football. Everything is
Yeah,
driven
that's
by
why.
football.
Yeah.
For basketball, they'll be okay. Um, it's I guess unfortunate for like other sports other than the two primary ones, but the Pac-12 did this to itself. The leadership has just been absolutely incompetent for over a decade. First,
Hmm.
I believe the gentleman's name was is it Larry Drew or Larry Scott, something of this nature, the former commissioner, and the
The
current
guy who
one,
tried
George
to make the
Kliakov.
Pac-12 conference. There was one of them
Yes,
tried to
that
make
guy.
the Pac-12
The Ted,
network, right? Okay, yes, yes.
he did make it. That was Larry. I'm struggling with his last
Okay,
name. I think it might be Scott.
okay.
But he was moronic,
Yes.
and I just feel George has been even worse. Um, the way that they've handled their media rights for over a decade is idiotic. The Pac-12 network that like barely any cable companies carried by the end of it because they asked for such a high amount of money to have their channel be carried by like DirecTV, and I don't believe any streaming service, or maybe there's one that carries it, but um, just really embarrassing to fumble the bag that badly. And I mean, I guess you could say it coincided with like a downturn in the biggest brand USC's like football not being great,
Hmm.
but it's still just pretty hilarious. Like there's a video from a few years ago when they created the Big 12 ACC Pac-12 alliance where they're asking George like what does this mean? Like does this mean that you guys won't be poaching schools from one another? And is there like a written contract saying that? And he's like it means that we're all here to like do what's best for our schools and our sports, and there doesn't need to be a written contract. This is just good people coming to an agreement or something like that.
Oh my
And it's
God.
just like, dude, like you're a schmuck. Like you're just an absolute schmuck. And I don't know. I'm pretty glad the Pac-12's dead. I thought it was the worst referees, the worst TV situation, um, worst
Mine is
Surprised
Bill
at
and
leadership.
how fast
Pash.
it
Mine
happened.
is Bill and Pash, right?
I
Yeah,
will.
I'm
I
surprised at
hope
how
they
fast it
come
happened.
over,
It was just
Bill.
like
Come
one
to the real.
announcement,
Yeah.
and then everybody else. Yeah, it's
Well,
like
it
one
really
announcement happened, and then
it
everybody else
started
on the
with
same
USC
day,
and
just like, all
UCLA.
right,
It was always going to be
yeah,
hard to
yeah, yeah.
survive without those two because of the media market that they lost with LA. But I will say to you, Ashwin, as an Oregon fan, welcome to a real conference. Because
Thank you.
as we all know, I'm well familiar with the Big Ten as a half Wisconsin fan.
Washington too, dude. Went to
Oh
the
yeah,
Big Ten.
yeah. But
Yeah.
are you claiming
Somewhat of
Washington
a.
now? You're claiming
No, not
Washington now?
really, not really, but maybe a little bit, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh
it's
yeah.
fine.
Brian's twice Pac-12 certified, right?
Yes, 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 yes. I have now completely left the Pac-12 in
Yeah, thank
spirit.
God. But then yeah, welcome to a real conference. You'll see how like a properly run conference is, and it'll be good for you. You'll enjoy it. But regarding like Stanford and Cal, and let's not forget Wazoo and Oregon State,
Hmm.
they
Let's
probably
forget
those
Oregon State.
latter. Yeah, I guess you would say that, but they've had some good Civil War wins recently.
Yeah, that's
Um,
why.
yeah, I always will prefer the Beavs over your terrible school, but I think the latter two, Wazoo and Oregon State, can probably transition to a Mountain West situation. Like they
Okay.
fit pretty well. But I've also been reading like reports of there's likely a Pac-12 Mountain West merger that comes about
Hmm.
because the Pac-12 is still a bigger brand than the Mountain West, and I don't think that the Pac-12 can just poach schools away from the Mountain West because there's like a $34 million fee to leave the conference, and a lot of those schools are not as well funded.
Hmm.
So it's likely that the Pac-12 may still sort of exist, maybe under a different name. Stanford's the one who seems like they're going to go independent and hope for the best with that. And then Cal, if they do merge, would still be alive to stay in that conference. But if they don't merge, I'm not really sure what would happen to Cal. And Cal is like massively in debt sports wise. So they are pretty screwed right now as it stands. And it's kind of their own fault also. Stanford and Cal both really have only themselves to blame for the situation they're in.
And why do you say that?
I think
What
that
did
the
they
way
do
that they've treated sports over the last 5 years has been truly embarrassing.
in terms of what? Like not
To
giving
allow your
proper
schools,
funding or corruption
yeah,
or what?
proper funding, yeah. At Stanford particularly, I don't know how you go from being like on the precipice of being like a West Coast powerhouse to being an absolute joke in 5 years. There's like a
Okay.
reason David Shaw left. Like it was a really poorly run athletic department. I mean, except for like they cared about random sports outside of women's basketball. Like they do have a great women's basketball program, but they started caring about like rowing and stuff, and it's like cool, man. Like go move to New
Ivy League
England
envy.
and
Yeah,
be a what?
Ivy
Yeah,
League
go move
envy.
to New England and be an Ivy League school. Yeah, move your
Uh,
entire campus. Bunch of weird ass people.
uh,
Not a fan of those
no,
people.
enough said on that. Shame for them, but probably, as we are learning, probably deserved. Happy for Oregon, happy for Washington, and a lot of, uh, a lot of big games in the coming years to come. So excited for that.
And
Uh,
happy
Go ahead.
George Kliakov got made to look like a total ass in the whole situation.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably some just desserts on that.
yeah.
So that will do it for our sports today. We have just two segments coming up. One is the top. We did it during a top five, and we're doing a buy or sell. Top five for this week is your favorite TV shows. You get five, and then you get one honorable mention. Since it was my idea, I'll go first, and then we'll see your guys's on the other side of the break. Sound good?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. So I'll start with number five, and I wanted to put a show that I actually think deserves to be here, but I haven't finished it, so I thought it would be a little foolish. But so for five, I'm putting Seinfeld, but I
Oh,
would have,
dude.
well, I would have liked to have put Better Call Saul, but I haven't finished it, so I can't. I feel bad putting it there for five. Number four, The Office. Number three, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, big comedy guy.
Yeah,
Ashton
yeah.
loves to laugh, dude.
I,
Ashton, big guy, loves to laugh, dude.
number two, Mad Men. Mad Men really
Okay.
resonated with me. And then number one, my favorite TV show is Community. I love Community. I've watched many.
Community.
Yes.
That's
Some would say this is an
crazy.
unserious list, but
Steve's is big on. Steve doesn't like comedy apparently, but
That's
I love comedy shows. I feel that you
crazy.
can't combine lists. That would be my quibble
That's
with it.
crazy.
okay. So my honorable mention would have been Better Call Saul. Uh, I didn't finish it, so I put for my honorable mention. I put Breaking Bad. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
That's the
So
crazy one.
you get the gist of what it is. Just to repeat, my five was Seinfeld, Office, Curb, Mad Men, Community, with a honorable mention of Breaking Bad, and I would have liked to put Better Call Saul in, but can't. Okay. So let's take a break. We'll come back with you guys have like a minute or two to redo your list if you feel like comedy wasn't adequately advertised. Okay, but let's take a break and we'll see you shortly for Brian and Sebastian's list. All right.
Cool.
All right, we're back. Just finished my top five favorite TV shows. Going to hand it off to Brian for his top five. What do you got, Brian?
Okay. So I actually have a little bit of overlap with you. At number five, I do have Mad Men. I do love that show a lot. I mean, for those that know me, I do love that, whiskey drinking, cigarette smoking vibe. That's obviously what Mad Men is. And I mean, it's a great show. It's obviously where John Hamm. I mean, I'm sure he acted in other stuff, but that's like, I guess, where I learned from him, and I believe that's where he blew up from. And so I got Mad Men at a strong five. At number four, I have The Sopranos. That is a show that, to this day, like I still just watch clips randomly, and I actually watched it in college just because I had a roommate, Josh Huang, that he would always in his free time just watch Sopranos clips, and I had not watched it at the time, and I was just like, dude, like it can't be that sick. Like, why do you like? Anytime he had free time, he'd just watch a random clip, and so
Nino at the bar
um,
in leather
yeah,
chaps.
honestly, stuff like that, right? And then so I
Great
gave the
follow on Twitter, I will say. The actor who played Vito, great follow.
Okay.
And then so I decided to take it up, and I'd say easily became one of my favorite shows ever. Um, 2 and 3 are kind of tied, but I will start with of course, it's just favorite shows, and I have a little bit of the weeb flavor to myself. So number 3, of course, would be One Piece. I continue to think it's one of the best stories ever. Yesterday a big episode came out with spoiler alert, for people who don't really watch, but a big power up, let's say, happens, and it's just like a fun story of and I think it does it well in any video I've watched of like friendship and adventure. So obviously love One Piece a lot. And then number 2 would be Breaking Bad. I was one of the shows that I followed really closely, and during the time where everything was episodic, and there weren't that many shows out. It was kind of like the pre-Netflix era, or not pre-Netflix era, but not everybody was just watching everything disparately. It seemed like there was like a kind of a cultural zeitgeist going on with Breaking Bad. Everybody's watching it every week. It's like, oh shit, what's going to happen? So that is my
For
number
sure.
2. And then number 1 would be Cowboy Bebop. Again, going back to the anime stuff. I love like the jazz, the adventure, the space adventuring. And of course, that would be my favorite show, as you guys probably know. For my honorable mentions, I had The Wire. I have to have more than one. I had The Wire. It barely snuck out of my top 5 for Mad Men. I did like Mad Men a little bit more. Yeah, what? It's there. It's there. And then this isn't really like, I don't know if like my favorite show, but it's a show that I want to be my favorite. And it's like recency bias. It's Severance. It's new. It has a lot of potential for a show to be really amazing. And I just think like with the writer strikes, we're probably not going to see that for a while. And again, I don't think it's like quite there yet, but I did enjoy the first season a lot. I kind of love that experimental kind of weird storytelling. And so hoping that continues sometime soon. So that also gets an honorable mention spot. And that would be my top 5 favorite shows.
I thought about One Piece, but the reality is I don't watch the show that much. I read the manga. So like I can't say that I watched the show in like the last 5 years. So I don't know if I could say it's one of my favorite shows, but good choice. Sopranos too. Like I would have loved to put it, but I haven't finished it, so I can't say it's one of my favorite shows. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, good list. Very good
See,
list.
Sebastian,
And,
I'm a little
unique
bit
to
not.
Go ahead.
Well, I was hoping you hadn't seen The Wire because that's literally the only excuse to not have it in the top 3.
Okay, fair.
So
I mean,
the fact that you've seen it
it's
and
not
put
best.
it on
You're
honorable
confusing
mention.
You're
So-
confusing
No, but
it.
it's just
I
horrible.
I shouldn't have even put it in the honorable mentions.
Yeah, you should have just excluded it. It would have been a better look for you. But
it's tight, dude. It's tight.
the Severance point is actually a good one. I thought about including it, but I just couldn't because it's one season. Like,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
So I had to put that caveat. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's probably not even there yet for me, but the potential for it to be that type of show, I'm kind of pulling for it. So
It's on your
Yeah, like
top 5
landing
radar.
yes.
landing the plane is important though. Like
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
yeah.
because the
Probably
finale
why
of the first
Westworld
season
wasn't on
was
mine
crazy.
too, because they can't land the plane. Right?
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go Sebastian.
So I stuck with dramas because typically when people ask for your favorite shows, they're asking about dramas. But
See, we're going from the goofiest person, Ashwin, big funny guy. Mine's a
Yeah.
little bit more serious, more dramas, to the most serious man, dude.
yeah,
Sebastian.
so 5 was hard. There's a lot of contenders for 5. I'd put Sons of Anarchy as my 5th favorite, although I'd say it got kind of wonky at the end. But I do think they landed the plane pretty well and wrapped it up well. 4, I'd go with they're tied together. There's two shows, but they are tied together: Haunting of Bly Manor and Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
Hmm.
I'm just very into how Mike Flanagan's storytelling, and if you guys haven't watched them, I would recommend them. They're like
I haven't seen it. Okay.
No.
kind of scary, but also the story is really strong in both shows. 3, I'm going with The Affair. I love that show. Really just
Affair.
thought
Interesting.
the performances by Dominic West and what's her name? I can't remember her name off the top of my head. The red-haired woman who played Alice
Ruth
in
Wilson?
Luther. Yes, there you go. Thank you. Really strong
Yeah.
performances,
What's up?
and I just really I like that show a lot. I mean, I think it went under the radar for a lot of people because it was on Showtime, but would also recommend it. But I do feel there's a separate tier for the final two shows, and I'm very cliche in this regard. Sopranos is number 2.
Oh,
Enough's
really? Okay.
been said about The Sopranos. Yeah, it's one of
Yeah.
the best shows ever. But I'd say like the last season is a little bit rushed, and the first season they're still figuring
Sure.
it out. And then number 1, clearly just best show of all time, favorite show of all time is The Wire. Every season, I even like the second season that a lot of people don't like, and I think it's like the best finish of a show I've ever seen. I thought they wrapped it up pretty
I agree with that.
beautifully.
I do agree with that.
I've heard some complaints recently about it, like it was rushed. But I mean, I don't know how long you can drag a show on, and I thought that like them showing life basically goes on, like this cycle repeats
Yeah.
in their final montage was pretty brilliant. So The Wire to me is in a league of its own, even over The Sopranos, honestly. But I would say Sopranos
Damn.
can sneak into the same tier. And then for my honorable mentions, I'd say they're the two best comedy shows of all time: Frasier and King of the Hill.
Okay.
Both are incredibly witty, and they've aged very well to me. Whereas I'd say Seinfeld probably has not aged very well, in my opinion. And that's where I'll land. Yeah, and I just would say for people who would get on me about excluding Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, I think Vince Gilligan and I just have fundamentally different worldviews, and I hate the way he ends ended both of his like big
Do you
shows.
like the shows?
I did, but I can't give it to him because I'd say the way it's like he basically crashed a plane headfirst into the ground.
I would say that the way Breaking Bad ended, I was not too thrilled. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't super thrilled about it. So I'm actually not like disappointed in someone not having it in their top 5. I get it.
And I'd say Saul was even more cringe the way he ended the show.
Okay, I haven't
Oh
seen
no,
it.
that's
Yeah.
that's tough to hear. As
Oh,
someone who's
sorry.
not seen the end.
You'll like it. You'll like it. It'll be
You'll
fine.
like it, dude. You'll like
Because I
it,
like
dude.
cringe things, Sebastian.
Yeah,
Is that what
yeah.
you're
No,
saying?
because
Your
I think
favorite
I'm
show-
just an asshole personally. Like I think
No,
I just am kind of a dick when it comes to like TV shows.
Yeah, you'll like it, dude. Your favorite show is Community, so you'll like it. What?
don't understand that community hate. It's a great show.
I don't hate it.
That
I
was,
actually don't hate
that
it.
was one of like the mid 2010s NBC comedies, right?
Yes, by
Oh
Dan
yeah,
Harmon.
With
I hated
Childish
all of those
Gambino,
shows.
dude. With Childish
Yeah,
Gambino.
Yeah,
and
I
Chevy Chase.
genuinely. Oh, he was kind of funny in that show, from what I recall. But I just
Par
kind
for
of
the
hated the
course for today.
style, like the style of those shows. Like I didn't enjoy the NBC no laugh track era. It felt like those shows all tried to do like a similar vibe, and it was not my vibe.
That's
Okay.
super funny.
Anything else on TV shows? You guys both gave me 2, so I'm just picking one of your honorable mentions for the graphic. Okay. So for Sebastian, it'll be Frasier, and for Brian, it'll be Wire.
You might want to do. Oh, that's hard. Yeah, do Frasier. I've seen all those episodes more times, but
Okay.
it's like asking to
so
choose
that-
between twins.
That's the point. It's tough. It's a tough exercise. That'll conclude our top 5. It's TV shows. If you have any interesting ones for next week, guys, tell me, and we'll add it to the outline. Let's move to the buy or sell segment. Anybody have any particularly itchy ones that they want to get off their chest?
Do you? You're typically the guy who chimes in the segment.
Yeah, he says
That's a
that, and
great
he's
one.
just like looking around, like nobody says anything, dude.
I actually don't. I have a few that are like relevant to my last week, but nothing really pressing. So if you guys have any harsher ones, you can go
I have
first.
a quick one based on something I saw this morning on I
Sure.
believe it was CBS. It's just we're entering into like presidential election season,
Oh
and
yeah.
I don't think we need. I'm selling this. We don't need mainstream media coverage of every Republican candidate other than Trump to just be like glowing pieces selling them as tremendous human beings. Like this morning, there was a Chris Christie one, and it was just like, dude, this guy's like a literal sack of shit, and you're trying to portray him as like this great man who's gonna tell it how it is and pose a legitimate challenge to Trump. And it's just like I get that you guys hate Trump for a lot of legitimate reasons, but just because he sucks doesn't mean these people don't suck also. Like they also suck.
I
And
mean, that's the American media machine, though, man.
it's
It's just gonna
hilarious
happen,
though.
you know.
I'm
It's
selling it.
unbearable to me, honestly.
It's very funny to try to like see these things like, oh yeah, Chris Christie, he's gonna tell it how it is, and he's gonna be not afraid to get up on the debate stage with Trump. And it's I don't know, man. Like he's not gonna do shit. Like he just got called. White Lizzo was trending on Twitter last week because some dude called Chris
Oh, that's
Christie
hilarious.
White
That's
Lizzo,
hilarious.
and it was trending for like a whole day. And you're telling me
Oh
that this dude who
no.
got ethered by a random like grifty
Oh
Republican
no.
social media guy is gonna be a legitimate candidate for president when all somebody has to do is go, "Hey, White Lizzo," and it's just like, oh,
Yeah,
like,
you got owned. You got owned.
yeah, it's like, oh, like what? How could you even? I would just drop out of the race now after that. But I know he just wants to hoard money.
Yeah, that's just like a precursor to how hard it might be able to come later on if he continues on for a while. If White Lizzo goes that hard and we're still very early,
That's such a good name.
That's
I was
Lizzo.
that's
the
a cautionary tale, dude. That's a
I
cautionary
can't remember
tale.
the guy who said it, but I like looked at his profile and I was like, yeah, this guy sucks. Like, I don't like this guy. He's a scumbag, but he owned the shit out of Chris Christie right now, and it's very funny.
That's really funny.
Everybody was giving him kudos, and they were all saying the same thing. Like, this guy sucks, but he did own Chris Christie.
For sure.
Any more buys or sells, Sebastian?
No, I just got
one
that
for
one
this week. Okay. Yeah. Brian, anything?
Yeah, I have a buy.
Sure.
I recently got Street Fighter 6 maybe like 4
Nice.
days ago, and it's the first game in a while, like in terms of like competitive game, that I'm like pretty deep in the sauce. Like I'll pick it up, like I'll probably play for like 30 minutes, and then like 5 hours later, it's like two in the morning, and I'm just like, I have a stick, I have like a fighting stick, and I'm like just mashing on my stick at like 2 in the freaking morning. It's a really fun game. It's like it's got a lot of momentum. Yeah, for the first time in a while, I felt like legit gamer rage. Like I'll lose to somebody, and I'm just like, I have the urge to just like throw my controller against the wall or something. Yeah, which obviously like is terrible, and I've actually never done that, and I would never do that. But
I have.
I have not felt that feeling in a while of like actually wanting to win that bad. So that's probably it. And then like today is the Evo finals, like the big tournament of the year. So, and it's like the first one for Street Fighter 6 because it just came out like a month and a half ago. And so there's like a lot of momentum. It's a lot of fun. Like the old, for people that don't know, the fighting game community, it's like a gamer community, but rather than being like nerdy, it has a lot of roots in like old school New York, like Brooklyn and Queens and stuff. So if you look at the community, it's a lot of like,
I was gonna say not taking showers.
Like really, it's like like they like to get hype. They like to get in each other's faces. So it's like that is coming back for the first time in a really long time, because Street Fighter 5 did not have a lot of great reception, and Street Fighter 6 does have that good reception. So Street Fighter 6 is my buy.
Is that because they came from arcades?
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's old school New York arcades, and like one of the legends of the game, his name's Justin Wong. He was like a chubby, nerdy looking.
I know who that is.
Nerdy looking Chinese guy, but he's very New York. There's like many clips of him like I'll bet you any amount of money that you want that, I'll kick your fucking ass. It's like, it's just super funny. Like, it's just old school fighting game community stuff. So yeah, and he's, and he, like, they're all returning to the scene for Street Fighter 6. So it's like, it's kind of like a good thing for the scene.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything else on your buy or sell? Just
No,
one buy. Okay.
that's all, Ashwin. What about
So
you,
I have
sir?
just two sells. One is I think you guys will agree with me, and the other one is kind of silly. So I'll do the one you agree with me first. So I'm selling all type of music like suggestion services, like on YouTube,
Oh,
Spotify,
I don't know if I agree with that.
I
But go ahead.
100% disagree.
and YouTube, Spotify, Pandora. Like whenever I use
Crazy.
them, it's like literally a 10% ratio on a song hit. Like they'll give me a suggested, like Spotify suggested playlist and stuff, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, I can't seem to get any hits on them. Like, so especially on the YouTube mixes, it's the same shit over and over again, like the same 5 songs I've listened to repeated in some way or thing with different videos and stuff. So I've had really bad luck finding new music through, in particular, YouTube mixes and Spotify playlists of the week. So I was selling that. I have not, like, yeah, I'll pick up a song every now and then, but for how much data they have on me and like my preferences and dislikes, they should be doing better in my opinion. So I'm selling that. Yeah, like so that's my one that I think you guys would agree with, but you don't
Nope.
apparently.
I don't.
One thing I will say about it is I'd say YouTube music is 75 or 80% of the time it does a good job, and then there'll be a day which is like, yo, like, what are you doing? Like, all of this is ass. And like, I don't like what you're recommending me, and you're still doing it, and it's very annoying. So I can, if your ratio is like, I could see how it could get out of whack. Like, but I'd say for the most part, I like it.
Are you providing feedback in the form of like likes and dislikes and stuff?
Yes,
I am,
yes.
personally.
Okay, maybe I should start.
I think you need to be more active with it. You need to be more active with it because
engage.
I engage with it quite a bit, and not everything is going to be hit. And I'm not saying that the stuff I'm getting recommended is like, oh wow, these are absolute bangers, but they tend to be stuff that like, oh, like I enjoyed listening to this, and I'll do a deeper dive. Let's say I'm like, okay, this artist seems pretty niche, and I'll do a deeper dive on them. But of course, yeah, I'd put it at 75 to 80. It's not always going to be great.
So do you think there's been significant progress in the last like 5 to 10 years on music searching algorithms and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so. That's how I discovered like Afrobeats, honestly. Like, it was mainly through YouTube being kind of racist. And I was listening to dancehall from Jamaica, and it just randomly started playing like Afrobeats. And I was like, this is like really dank dancehall. Why have I never heard this before? And then I was like, I don't really understand what they're saying. What are they saying? And then I like looked it up, and it was like, this is Afrobeats. And I was like, oh, like this is pretty dank. And I just started listening to a lot of Afrobeats.
That's that classic tech built-in, racism. You know what I mean?
That was like back in like early COVID days, and I'd say it's gotten a lot better since then.
Yeah, sure.
Like, they don't make that mistake anymore for the most part.
For sure.
Okay.
I was dying. And
I know. Yes, I know you guys we're going somewhere, so let's try to wrap it up. My silly sell is that I have been purchasing bags of chips from the gas station, okay? And one particular flavor I like is a Ruffles flavor called queso, okay? Have you seen these ones around?
I haven't seen
gas station. It's
very believable, but I haven't seen them.
Yeah, so Ruffles has this flavor, and when you eat it, each chip is like packed with flavor or sodium or whatever they do. Like, it's legitimately like one of the most flavorful chips I've ever had, okay? And so what I did is, as any responsible adult would do, is say, I'm buying 2 to 3 of these bags every week from the gas station. Let me go and pay for the entire bag from a Pavilions type situation or like a Ralph's situation, okay? And so I went and I bought it. I bought these types of chips, okay? And what I saw was that the sodium content or like the flavoring on each chip is significantly worse than on the individual bag chips. And like when you look at it, it's like there's not even any flavor on the chip. And I've noticed this also on Cool Ranch. When you buy Cool Ranch from the gas station, you can get those really flavorful pieces of chip. But when you go and buy them at the store, they're always under seasoned. And I don't know if there's some sodium like daily value they have to meet in the bags that they don't have to do in the little bags. But I'm selling big bags of chips because the flavoring is not ever the same as the small bags of chips that you get from the gas station. And I encourage you guys to try it out the next time you.
Maybe it's just like flavor distribution is
That's what
less
my
likely to
theory
be
would be. Yeah.
even in a large bag. That might be it.
All that matters is that the consumer is getting
Yeah, the
shafted
consumer
on.
experience, dude.
It's
The consumer
it's
experience.
terrible. So yeah, like I ate these chips because they were here, but I didn't enjoy them. Okay.
Wow,
Like
you went from most flavorful chip to I hate them
yeah,
in the
like
big bag.
they were just like eating like Ruffles with no flavoring on them. Why would you want to eat them? So
Ruffles are delicious, first of all, so
I
that's
love
not a huge
Ruffles.
by
one.
themselves, you're eating
Yeah.
potato flavored
I
Ruffles.
love plain
Yeah,
Ruffles.
I
Yes.
love
Oh
plain
my god!
Ruffles.
Oh my god!
Oh, come
And
on.
it has
Much
to have
more
like
than
cheddar
what did you?
sour cream or like.
No,
No.
I love
Plain Ruffles
original
over
Ruffles.
cheddar sour cream for sure.
Oh my
Yeah,
god!
I
Not a
agree
big
with
fan of
Sebastian on
cheese
this one.
chips.
I like cheese chips, but I'm with Sebastian
It
that I
depends.
like regular flavored Ruffles. They're quite good.
They're
Okay.
delicious. Yeah, they have a
Each to
great
their own.
salty flavor. But
Each to their.
is the design on the bag look the exact same?
It's the exact same bag,
Wow.
but like literally half
Wow.
as much sodium or flavoring, if not less.
Have you done
So
like a comparison
I will have to do the comparisons now. I'll have to
of the label?
make yeah, yeah. I have to do that next. I
Another
suppose.
segment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
Well,
could be a
Ashton's
video
deep
segment. That could be
dive.
a special video segment, dude.
Big
So,
bag
the
and small
comparison.
bag deep dive.
Yes. So that's myself for this week. I was wildly disappointed because I was looking forward to having those chips as my like snack for the weekend.
I kind
And,
of I kind of can see like I'm trying to think of my experience because I don't eat a lot of chips anymore, but
yeah,
I do feel like the Cheetos in the small bags did have better flavor than the large bag of Cheetos back in the day.
there has to be some corporate bullshit for it, but I'm onto them.
I
Let's just say
I
that.
actually
Okay.
think it's the flavor distribution.
But then at some point, like you're saying for this unit of chips, there's this much flavoring, but for this unit of chips, this bigger unit of chips, there's less flavoring.
I don't know.
The
That's
ratio
actually
should be the same, right?
less care
That's the
put into the
question.
large bag.
Exactly. Something's going off. I'm just bringing it to the people's attention so they know and they can avoid it in the future. Brian, I sent you a song of the week. Think that'll be it for us. Anything you guys want to say? We're signing off now.
No. Been a good pod. Hopefully it gets cooler. That's it for me.
Yeah, so I'm giving the song for this week. Sebastian, anything interesting in sports this week we should look out for next pod?
League's Cup will continue tonight with Inter Miami versus FC Dallas, and then I think the rest of the quarterfinals are tomorrow. But that's starting up. U.S. plays its first exhibition against Puerto Rico U.S. men's basketball team tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And I think that's pretty much the most interesting things. It's kind of a bad week for fights next weekend. But yeah.
We have a Premier League starting, and like you said, we'll have a lot of U.S. soccer to talk, U.S. basketball to talk about.
Oh yeah,
next week too,
definitely.
yeah.
Next weekend we start with La Liga and English
League,
Premier
yeah.
League. Yeah, and yesterday Celtic won their opening match, and Rangers
Congrats.
humiliated themselves at Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock, a team that had to win a 2-leg playoff to stay in the Scottish Premiership. Rangers, after their big summer overhaul, lost 1-0 at Killy, and it was absolutely hilarious. So, great start to the Scottish Premier League. The Brendan
Yes, and
Rodgers
especially
era
for
part 2 is doing okay.
yeah, especially for the Celtic supporters. So yeah.
All right, yeah,
That'll be it for this.
Unbelievable.
Go ahead.
No, it's just unbelievable when Rangers do something like that. Like, it's just one of the best comedies you can have in sports. when Rangers bottle it.
So instead of watching my comedy shows, I'll watch that Sebastian about that.
I think you'd enjoy it. It was pretty funny.
Okay, that wraps us up for this week. Thanks for joining. We'll be back next Sunday, release next Monday. And like we said, we'll talk about some soccer and some basketball then. Take care, guys. Thanks for joining.
Of course.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.